The marble corridors of Renaissance Florence echoed with whispered conversations of power, betrayal, and survival. In these halls, where noble families rose and fell like tides, Niccolò Machiavelli walked among princes and paupers alike, observing the delicate dance of human nature. What he witnessed would challenge every conventional notion of virtue, morality, and leadership that had governed Western thought for centuries. Machiavelli's revolutionary insight was not born from theoretical speculation but from brutal observation of human behavior under extreme pressure. He watched as leaders who sought universal approval crumbled under the weight of impossible expectations, while those who embraced selective ruthlessness carved out lasting legacies. His conclusions, though controversial, revealed a fundamental truth about human psychology that remains as relevant today as it was 500 years ago. The modern world has sanitized Machiavelli's teachings, reducing them to corporate catchphrases about strategic thinking and tough decisions. Yet his most profound insight remains largely misunderstood. The deliberate destruction of one's people-pleasing instincts is not merely a political strategy but a psychological transformation that renders an individual invulnerable to the manipulations and expectations of others. Consider the executive who spends sleepless nights crafting emails that might offend no one, only to watch decisive competitors capture opportunities while she deliberates. Observe the parent who exhausts themselves trying to be perfect for everyone, creating children who respect neither boundaries nor authentic authority. Witness the artist who dilutes their vision to accommodate every critic, producing work that pleases no one and inspires nothing. These modern tragedies share a common thread with the fallen princes Machiavelli studied. They stem from a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature and the mechanics of respect, influence, and genuine connection. The people-pleaser operates under the illusion that universal approval leads to security and love, when in reality, it breeds contempt and exploitation. Machiavelli's hidden strategy begins with a counterintuitive truth: the very qualities that society labels as virtuous, constant agreeability, self-sacrifice, and the desperate need for approval, often create the conditions for personal destruction. Not because these qualities are inherently evil, but because they signal weakness to those who would exploit it, and, more critically, they prevent the development of the strong, authentic self that commands genuine respect. The transformation Machiavelli advocated was not the adoption of cruelty or manipulation, though his work has been twisted to justify such behavior. Instead, it was the cultivation of what he called virtue, a complex concept combining strength, adaptability, and the courage to act according to one's principles regardless of popular opinion. This virtue required the death of the weak self, the part of personality that seeks validation through compliance, that mistakes being needed for being valued, and that confuses harmony with genuine peace. In the boardrooms of Silicon Valley, entrepreneurs who embody this principle make decisions based on data and vision rather than the desire to be liked by investors or employees. They understand that respect is earned through consistent, principled action, not through accommodating every demand or suggestion. These leaders create cultures of excellence precisely because they refuse to lower standards to maintain superficial harmony. The romantic relationships of those who have mastered this strategy tell a similar story. Rather than morphing themselves to fit their partner's every preference, they maintain their authentic selves while remaining genuinely caring and considerate. This authenticity creates attraction and respect that people-pleasing behavior never could. Partners know where they stand, what to expect, and can trust that the love they receive is genuine rather than a performance designed to maintain approval. Machiavelli observed that princes who tried to please all factions within their territories inevitably pleased none. Each group sensed the leader's willingness to compromise core principles for acceptance, leading to contempt rather than loyalty. The same dynamic plays out in families where parents avoid setting firm boundaries to maintain their children's approval, inadvertently teaching those children that authority can be manipulated and that love is conditional on providing constant accommodation. The transformation from people-pleaser to authentic leader begins with recognizing the hidden costs of approval-seeking behavior. These costs extend far beyond personal exhaustion and resentment. People-pleasers inadvertently teach others that their time, energy, and principles are negotiable, creating relationships built on exploitation rather than mutual respect. They model for their children that self-worth comes from external validation, setting up the next generation for the same struggles. Most devastatingly, they never discover their true capabilities because they're too busy managing others' emotions to develop their own potential. The first phase of implementing Machiavelli's strategy involves what he would recognize as the destruction of the weak self through deliberate exposure to disapproval. This is not about becoming disagreeable or confrontational, but about making decisions based on principles and logic rather than the desire to maintain universal approval. It means saying no to requests that compromise one's values or overextend one's resources, even when that no disappoints people whose approval once seemed essential. A marketing director implementing this strategy might refuse to approve a campaign she knows is ethically questionable, even if it would make her popular with the aggressive sales team. A parent might maintain bedtime routines despite their child's protests and temporary displeasure. A friend might decline to enable someone's destructive behavior, risking the end of a relationship that was built on unhealthy dynamics. Each act of principled resistance creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance in both the individual and their social network. The people pleaser experiences anxiety as they violate their conditioning to accommodate others' emotions. Meanwhile, those accustomed to easy compliance may react with anger, manipulation, or withdrawal. This is the crucial test that separates those who will complete the transformation from those who will retreat to familiar patterns. Machiavelli understood that this initial period of resistance would feel like warfare, both internal and external. The weak self dies hard, having been reinforced by years of small victories through accommodation. Every disappointed face, every guilt trip, every suggestion that standing firm is selfish triggers the old programming to surrender principles for peace. Yet those who persist through this discomfort discover something remarkable: the world doesn't end when they stop pleasing everyone, and the relationships that survive are dramatically stronger. The second phase involves what Machiavelli called the cultivation of feared respect rather than needy love. This distinction is crucial and often misunderstood. Machiavelli never advocated for leadership through terror or cruelty. Instead, he observed that effective leaders command a type of respect that includes an element of healthy fear that standards will be maintained, that consequences will follow actions, and that the leader cannot be manipulated through emotional appeals. A CEO who embodies this principle creates an organization where employees respect both her fairness and her firmness. They know that excellent work will be recognized and poor performance will be addressed directly. This clarity eliminates the anxiety and political maneuvering that plague organizations led by people pleasers, who often avoid difficult conversations and allow problems to fester rather than risk disapproval. In intimate relationships, this translates to partners who love deeply but are not desperate for love. They contribute fully to the relationship while maintaining their independence and self-respect. Their partners feel secure because they know the relationship is chosen rather than compulsive, built on genuine compatibility rather than fear of abandonment. Parents who master this balance raise children who feel truly secure because they understand boundaries and expectations. These children learn that love is not contingent on being easy to manage, but they also learn that actions have consequences and that relationships require mutual respect. They grow up with the confidence that comes from knowing where they stand and what is expected of them. The transformation reaches its completion in the third phase, where the individual develops what Machiavelli recognized as the ultimate form of power, the power to walk away. This is not the bitter withdrawal of someone who has given up on human connection, but the serene confidence of someone who knows their worth independent of others' approval. This power is paradoxically magnetic, drawing authentic relationships while repelling those who would exploit or manipulate. Business leaders who embody this principle negotiate from a position of genuine strength because they are prepared to walk away from deals that don't serve their interests or values. They build companies that reflect their vision rather than trying to create something that will appeal to everyone. This clarity of purpose attracts customers, employees, and partners who share their values while naturally filtering out those who don't. In personal relationships, this translates to individuals who love freely and deeply while maintaining their independence. They give generously because they choose to, not because they fear the consequences of saying no. Their relationships are characterized by genuine choice rather than obligation, creating the conditions for authentic intimacy and mutual growth. The journey from people pleaser to authentic leader is neither quick nor easy. It requires confronting deeply ingrained patterns of thought and behavior, often rooted in childhood experiences of conditional love and approval. It means accepting that some relationships will end when the dynamics change, and that this ending is not a failure but a necessary clearing that makes space for healthier connections. Those who complete this transformation often report a profound sense of relief, as if they've been holding their breath for years and can finally exhale. The exhausting work of managing others' emotions and reactions becomes unnecessary when one operates from authentic principles rather than the desire for approval. Energy previously spent on accommodation becomes available for creative pursuits, meaningful relationships, and personal growth. Yet this transformation requires wisdom to avoid the trap of swinging too far in the opposite direction. Machiavelli's strategy is not about becoming selfish or callous, but about developing the strength to be genuinely generous rather than compulsively accommodating. It's about learning to distinguish between kindness that comes from strength and kindness that comes from weakness, understanding that only the former has the power to genuinely serve others. The leader who has destroyed their weak self can afford to be genuinely compassionate because their compassion is not motivated by the need for approval but by authentic care for others' well-being. They can make difficult decisions with grace because they are not emotionally attached to being liked by everyone affected. They can maintain high standards because their self-worth is not dependent on others finding those standards easy to meet. This transformation has profound implications for every area of life. Professional relationships become more productive and respectful when they are based on competence and integrity rather than the manipulation of approval dynamics. Romantic partnerships deepen when both individuals bring their authentic selves to the relationship rather than trying to be whoever they think their partner wants them to be. Parent-child relationships become more secure and nurturing when parents operate from confident authority rather than desperate need for their children's approval. Children raised by these parents learn to respect genuine authority while developing their own authentic selves, breaking generational cycles of people-pleasing and codependency. Friendships reach new depths when they are based on genuine compatibility and shared values rather than the fear of being alone or disliked. These relationships survive disagreements and challenges because they are built on mutual respect rather than the fragile foundation of constant accommodation. The individual who has successfully implemented Machiavelli's strategy becomes what he called truly free, not because they can do whatever they want without consequences, but because their choices are guided by their own principles and wisdom rather than the opinions and expectations of others. They have developed what modern psychology recognizes as secure attachment, the ability to form close relationships while maintaining their individual identity. This freedom creates what Machiavelli observed as true invulnerability. Not the invulnerability of the person who trusts no one and connects with nothing, but the invulnerability of someone who cannot be controlled through the manipulation of their need for approval. They can be influenced by logic, moved by genuine emotion, and inspired by shared vision, but they cannot be manipulated through guilt, fear of abandonment, or the promise of social acceptance. The modern applications of this principle are endless. Entrepreneurs who embrace it create companies that change the world rather than companies designed to please investors. Artists produce work that moves and challenges rather than work calculated to avoid offense. Politicians who understand it, rare though they may be, govern according to principle rather than polling data. Teachers who embody this principle create classrooms where learning flourishes because students respect both their authority and their genuine care. They maintain high standards while providing support, understanding that true kindness sometimes requires saying no or allowing students to experience the consequences of their choices. Healthcare providers who master this balance provide better care because their decisions are based on medical expertise and genuine concern for patient welfare rather than the desire to avoid difficult conversations or maintain popularity. They can deliver difficult news with compassion and insist on necessary treatments even when patients resist. The strategy extends to personal finance, where individuals who have destroyed their weak selves make decisions based on their actual financial situation and long-term goals rather than trying to maintain an image that pleases others. They can live below their means without embarrassment, invest for the future rather than spending to impress, and say no to financial requests that would compromise their security. In the realm of physical health and wellness, this transformation allows individuals to make choices based on what genuinely serves their well-being rather than what others expect or approve of. They can maintain dietary boundaries at social events, prioritize sleep over social obligations, and exercise in ways that suit their bodies rather than following trends designed to impress others. The spiritual dimensions of this work are perhaps the most profound. Many religious and philosophical traditions speak of the need to die to the false self, to surrender the ego that seeks validation and control. Machiavelli's strategy, though secular in its presentation, touches on this same fundamental truth, that authentic power and peace come from operating according to one's deepest principles rather than the shifting demands of external approval. Those who complete this transformation often find that their capacity for genuine compassion increases dramatically. When they are no longer preoccupied with managing others' opinions of them, they can actually see and respond to others' real needs rather than their own projections and fears. They can offer support without enabling, challenge without attacking, and love without losing themselves. The ripple effects of this transformation extend far beyond the individual. Children raised by parents who have mastered this principle learn to respect authentic authority while developing their own inner compass. Employees working for leaders who embody these qualities experience less workplace stress and greater professional development. Communities benefit when their members operate from authentic principles rather than the desperate need to fit in or be approved of by others. The relationship between personal transformation and social change becomes clear through this lens. Societies change when individuals change, and individuals change when they develop the courage to stop seeking universal approval and start living according to their deepest values and clearest thinking. This is not a call to selfishness or disregard for others, but a recognition that authentic service to others requires a strong, principled self to do the serving. The modern epidemic of anxiety, depression, and relationship dysfunction can be traced in large part to the people-pleasing patterns that Machiavelli identified centuries ago as politically disastrous. When individuals base their self-worth on others' approval, they create an inherently unstable foundation for their mental health. When they sacrifice their principles to maintain harmony, they lose touch with their authentic selves and wonder why they feel empty despite being surrounded by people. The solution Machiavelli proposed, the deliberate destruction of the weak self through principled action regardless of others' approval, remains as radical and effective today as it was in Renaissance Italy. It requires courage, wisdom, and persistence, but it offers something that people-pleasing never can: genuine respect, authentic relationships, and the deep satisfaction that comes from living according to one's true nature rather than others' expectations. The transformation is not about becoming harsh or uncaring, but about developing the strength to be genuinely kind rather than compulsively accommodating. It's about learning the difference between love and approval seeking, between service and people-pleasing, between kindness and enabling. These distinctions are subtle but crucial, determining whether our relationships become sources of mutual growth or mutual destruction. Machiavelli's hidden strategy ultimately reveals itself to be not about gaining power over others, but about gaining power over oneself. The individual who cannot be destroyed by others is not the one who is strongest or most ruthless, but the one who has developed such clear principles and genuine self-respect that they cannot be manipulated through the promise of approval or the threat of rejection. This inner strength manifests as outer effectiveness in every domain of life. Professional success becomes more likely when decisions are based on competence and vision rather than the need to be liked. Personal relationships deepen when they are based on authentic compatibility rather than fear-driven accommodation. Creative work flourishes when it emerges from genuine inspiration rather than calculated attempts to please an audience. The paradox of Machiavelli's strategy is that by stopping the attempt to please everyone, one becomes more genuinely pleasing to those who matter. By refusing to accommodate everyone's demands, one becomes more genuinely helpful to those who truly need support. By developing the strength to say no, one's yes becomes more valuable and meaningful. This transformation requires understanding that disapproval is not dangerous, that conflict is not always destructive, and that being disliked by some people is not only acceptable but necessary for authentic living. It requires recognizing that the attempt to please everyone pleases no one, including oneself, and that the fear of rejection often prevents the very connections we seek to create. The final measure of this transformation is not the absence of criticism or conflict, but the presence of inner peace and authentic relationships. The individual who has successfully destroyed their weak self experiences a profound sense of freedom, not because they can do whatever they want, but because they are no longer enslaved by others' opinions. They can engage with feedback without being controlled by it, receive criticism without being devastated by it, and offer love without expecting it to be returned in specific ways. This freedom allows for genuine risk-taking in all areas of life. Creative risks become possible when one is not paralyzed by the fear of criticism. Relationship risks become manageable when one's self-worth is not dependent on being accepted by any particular person. Professional risks become opportunities for growth rather than threats to one's identity. The legacy of someone who embodies Machiavelli's strategy extends far beyond their individual success or happiness. They become a model for others struggling with people-pleasing patterns, demonstrating that it is possible to be both strong and kind, both principled and compassionate. Their relationships become examples of what authentic connection looks like when it's not corrupted by the dynamics of approval-seeking and manipulation. Their children grow up with secure attachment patterns, having learned that love is not conditional on being easy to manage. Their employees develop confidence and competence, having worked in an environment where excellence is expected and supported. Their friends experience the rare gift of knowing someone who loves them for who they really are rather than who they pretend to be. Machiavelli's hidden strategy, properly understood and implemented, offers a path to authentic power that serves rather than exploits, strength that protects rather than attacks, and freedom that enables genuine service to others. The man or woman who destroys their weak self through this process becomes truly indestructible, not because they are beyond criticism or conflict, but because they have developed the inner resources to respond to life's challenges from a place of principle rather than panic, strength rather than desperation, and love rather than need. This is the ultimate gift that Machiavelli's controversial insights offer to the modern world, a way to live that honors both individual authenticity and genuine service to others, that creates relationships based on respect rather than dependency, and that builds success on the solid foundation of character rather than the shifting sands of popular approval. The transformation is challenging, but the rewards, personal freedom, authentic relationships, and genuine effectiveness make it one of the most valuable journeys an individual can undertake. The choice before every person is ultimately simple, though not easy: continue seeking the approval of others at the cost of their authentic self, or develop the courage to live according to their deepest principles regardless of who approves or disapproves. Machiavelli's strategy shows the way for those ready to choose authenticity over approval, strength over accommodation, and genuine love over the desperate need to be needed. The weak self must die so that the authentic self can be born, and, in that death and rebirth lies the secret to a life that cannot be destroyed by others because it is not dependent on their validation for its worth.